Okay,
Yeah.
so I make this movie, and I thought, okay, I'm a movie producer. I've got no money. I'm still broke. I better try and make another movie. And somehow I end up meeting, I think, Carol Smith, because I was probably calling all the literary agents saying, I'm a movie producer. I'd like to find more
Okay.
material. She gives me maybe the first draft of this book that
Yeah.
Peter had written. And I thought it was kind of interesting. It scared me. And then I met up with Peter, who was like a starving journalist. And this was his first book. And I thought he was great. And then
It's a bit of a strange. There must have been a time gap there, though, because obviously Julia, the novel came out in late 75.
Okay.
So we're talking about a 3-year gap, obviously, in the film. So I don't know what you were doing in the. I was
probably struggling.
You did some work in the theatre as well. Is that right?
I produced a play. I was obsessed with theatre and movies.
Right.
So, and I was just a struggling producer.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because Peter is very similar, because he had actually had a novel published prior to Julia, which wasn't horror at all, called Marriages, because he was obviously American, but he did English literature degree, then was an English literature teacher, then came to Dublin to do a PhD in literature, then moved to London, and as you say, thought of himself as a writer, poetry to begin with, came up with this novel Marriages, didn't sell at all, came up with his second novel called Under Venus, showed it to the same publisher, and they were like, no chance. So he literally didn't have a publisher and had this novel. And so then he was like, oh my God, I can't put food on the table. He'd got a daughter. I think he was married. It was like the walls were closing in. Yeah. And then that was when Carol, who was a friend of his, and then went on to become an agent, said, well, if you want to have a success, why not give horror a try? Gothic horror, because of Rosemary's Baby and all these these various things that had been books and success. The Exorcist was still doing the rounds, and he thought, okay, well, I can have a crack at that, and apparently just began walking around London with a notebook, trying to think of ideas, and he said that he was walking around Holland Park one of the days and basically had this idea of a group of kids killing another child with this blonde-haired girl as their sort of like leader of the gang, if you like. And he just sort of thought, oh, I like that idea. That one could work. Put it down in his notepad, and then just went home, and the sort of rest is history, as it were. But and when he showed Julia then to the publishers that had turned down his previous novel, they were all over it, because they thought, well, this is exactly the type of thing that'll sell, or that we can sell. But I'm interested how because I think when I interviewed you previously, you said you were sent proofs of it or something like that, and you sort of read it.
Maybe Carol gave me a galley of it.
Right.
And I thought it was great. It got me. And then I thought, okay, let's try and do this. I thought this would make a great movie. And then I think I met Richard somehow. I think I saw his first film. I think he did a film.
Well, you must have met Peter. Do you remember meeting Peter at all?
I do remember Peter. Yeah, I remember Peter. He was living like in Muswell Hill, I think. I remember going around to his house, and we got on, and he was great. And then Carol was great, and I suppose I bought the rights.
Yeah.
And then started the whole process of finding a director and hunting the money and getting the actors.
Yes.
And I don't know how long that took. I can't remember now. You probably know.
Yeah, well, I know, obviously, the novel came out in America before the UK. So I think we're talking late 75, early 76. Yeah. And I think it was Jonathan Cape, I think, was the sort of publisher of the sort of novel. Right. And so obviously, I know you did a deal. I think I've read that you paid, or somewhere I've got it written down, that you paid, I think, £500 for the rights to the book.
Probably all the money I had in the world.
Well, exactly. Which I've got some quotes from Peter where he basically said, he was young, you were young, He wasn't a name. You know, you come to him and you're very enthusiastic about it, and you're like, and for him having a book turned into a film was, he'd never even thought, never even thought of it. You know, so the fact that he's like, well, these guys are young, they're enthusiastic, they're passionate about it. Let's just sort of go with it.
That's what you do when you're young and you're stupid. You just like throw caution to the wind.